Hello and welcome to World History B, Unit 8, Communist China. So those of you with better memories have probably been wondering why I've been talking about only the Soviet Union and only America in the battle between communism and democracy when there's another country that was in the middle of a civil war right before World War II started and was put on pause to decide if this massive country would be communist or not. And that country is China. So during World War II, while the Civil War was put on pause, a lot of devastation happened. Depending on who you ask, between 10 and 22 million Chinese died in the conflict with Japan, and the cities, major economic centers, were in ruins, much like what happened in Europe. Now, as a reminder, the two sides were led by Jiang Jiechi and Mao Zedong, and as soon as World War II was done, these two went back at it and the two sides were on again. The Civil War was resumed. Now, Jiang Jiechi, the leader of the Nationalist Party, he was the established leader. He was the legal leader. He was the one being revolted against, and he was actually supported by the United States because Mao Zedong was the communist and he wasn't. But he was a very corrupt leader. He lost the support of the people, and he actually began to lose support of the military. Mao Zedong, not only supported by the Soviet Union and their vast resources, had the support of the people and began to build a very powerful army that would be able to depose, get rid of Jiang Jiechi, and establish the Communist Party as the ruling party. And that's exactly what he did. One of the reasons why so many people were willing to support Mao Zedong and his revolt against the Nationalist Party was because he won their loyalty by promoting literacy, education, and promising them, we're going to have enough food for everybody. We're not going to have hunger, no more starvations, and a leader who doesn't care. And in 1949, when Mao gained control of the country, he kept that promise. He did the best he could to try to bring food to the people, bring education to the people. His first major plan was called the Great Leap Forward in 1958, and this called for large collective farms or communes to be built in China that all the citizens would be forced to work on to make sure there was enough farmers making enough food to feed everybody, even if you didn't want to be a farmer. 26,000 of these communes were created. Peasants worked the land together, ate together, slept together in the same areas, and for a while it seemed like mission accomplished. The food production was increasing. People were willing to sacrifice and take on this job that they normally wouldn't do because they knew, hey, this is going to make sure me and my family eats. Until 1961, when the bottom fell out and there was a major famine. There wasn't enough food for everybody, even with all the communal farming, and 20 million people died. And this spurred on the Cultural Revolution because Mao felt we weren't doing enough. We didn't go far enough. We can't just have farms. We've got to radically change the way our entire nation thinks and make sure everyone is 100% dedicated to the cause to make sure a famine, a failure of the system never happens again. The goal of the revolution was to establish a society of peasants and workers in which all people were equal, that classless society. And it was led by the Red Guards. The Red Guards shut down colleges and they shut down schools. You think, well, that's weird though. I thought he promised education. He did, but he realized his education system needed to only match the idea of his revolution. So when these colleges and schools were shut down, it was to make sure that going forward, as they were reopened, they'd only be teaching what the government wanted them to teach. He wanted to basically start to control the minds of his people through education, a lot like Mussolini did back in Italy. But by 1968, Mao admitted that this too was a failure. It was creating chaos. The Red Guard, which was leading this revolution, was abusing its power. People were suffering. If you do interviews with people who remember it today, people who were young at that time, saw it as a golden age where they had all this power and freedom and responsibility given to them by the government. But if you ask some of the elderly, those that are still alive today, they remember it as a nightmare, a time when they were controlled by these younger Red Guard soldiers, and they lived in fear of their lives because anything they said could be looked at as against the government, and the punishment could be as harsh as death on the spot. There really wasn't a trial and jury system because the Red Guards were students, mainly teenagers, who were seeking to purify the Communist Party of any intellectual, any educator that went against communist thought. They destroyed, beat, and even killed anybody, and that's why the elderly, those who were middle-aged or older at the time, look back at the Cultural Revolution time period as a nightmare because they were in fear of their lives, because teenagers had the power to execute anybody they didn't like. So even if it wasn't someone who was really against the government, but the kid decided he didn't like that adult because maybe he looked at him the wrong way or was too harsh of a teacher, it would be very easy to make something up saying, oh, well, this guy's teaching things against the government, so let's kill him. And that happened. And so people were living in terror of these teenage Red Guards. And that is why Mao in 1968 realized the chaos he was creating was too much, and he needed to take a real hard look about how to make communism work. Otherwise, he would be at risk of a revolution against him. And that's it for Communist China. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.